He expected a yes to a lifetime of silent sacrifice. But I'd already been the forgotten understudy in his play once. This time, I was tearing down the whole damn theater. The university acceptance letter, crisp and white, felt like a shield in Anya's hand, deflecting the cold authority radiating from Marcus. His words, laced with an expectation of unwavering obedience, echoed in the oppressive silence of the military compound's entrance. "Anya," he repeated, his voice dangerously low, "you understand your duty. Your place is here, beside me, raising our family. A soldier's wife doesn't need a university education." Anya's grip tightened on the parchment, its edges digging into her palm. Duty, place, soldier's wife. The phrases, once the cornerstones of a future she'd blindly accepted, now felt like shackles. In her past life, she had believed him, had abandoned her dreams, only to find herself a pale reflection, a placeholder. She remembered the hollow ache, the slow erosion of her spirit as she waited, endlessly, for a love that was always meant for another. "Not this time." "My duty," Anya countered, her voice surprisingly steady, a steel thread woven through the calm, "is to myself, and my place is not in your shadow, Marcus, nor in the gilded cage you offer as a wife's security." She took a step closer, her eyes locking onto his, searching for the man she once thought she knew, only to find the same self-deluding stranger. "You talk of duty, but what of your own? What of the woman whose ghost haunts your every word, whose memory you cling to even as you ask me to sacrifice my life?" Marcus flinched, a flicker of raw, unmasked pain darting across his usually impassive face. It was almost imperceptible, quickly masked by a resurgence of anger, but Anya had seen it. She had struck a nerve, the deepest, most carefully guarded one. "Celeste?" Anya continued, her voice gaining strength, each word a chisel chipping away at his carefully constructed facade. "You never loved me, Marcus. You loved the idea of a woman who could fill the void Celeste left. I was merely a convenient stand-in, a warm body to occupy the space until your true white moonlight returned." The accusation hung in the air, heavy with years of unspoken resentment and newfound clarity. "You're not asking me to be your wife. You're asking me to be her shadow, to live a half-life in a marriage built on a lie. I refuse." His jaw clenched, a muscle working furiously. The cool, controlled demeanor he always wore, the one that commanded respect from his subordinates and stifled any dissent, was cracking. His eyes, usually sharp and penetrating, now held a bewildered fury, mixed with something akin to betrayal. He hadn't expected this. He had expected her to weep, to beg, to be convinced by his authority and the societal pressures he so readily invoked. He had expected a yes to a lifetime of silent sacrifice. But she'd already been the forgotten understudy in his play once. This time, she was tearing down the whole damn theater. You dare," Marcus finally managed, his voice a guttural rasp, stripped of its usual smooth command. The meticulously constructed image of the stoic military officer, the dutiful fiancé, crumbled around him. He looked, for the first time, truly vulnerable and utterly furious. Anya met his gaze without faltering. "I dare. And this time, Marcus, I choose me." With that, she turned, a deliberate, unwavering pivot. The gate guards, who had been stiffly pretending not to listen, quickly averted their eyes, though the silent shock was palpable. She walked away from the compound, each step lighter than the last, leaving behind the shattered fragments of a past she no longer claimed. Outside the imposing gates, a small group of young men and women, her fellow Jiqing, who had also recently returned from the countryside, were gathered, chatting idly. Their faces, still etched with the weariness of manual labor and uncertain futures, brightened at the sight of her. "Anya, what are you doing here? Did you finally resolve things with Commander Su?" One of them, a lanky young man named Lin, called out, a hint of nervous curiosity in his voice. They all knew about her engagement to the rising military star, a match that promised stability in tumultuous times. Anya stopped, a genuine, unburdened smile finally gracing her lips. She held up the university acceptance letter, letting the late afternoon sun catch its official seal. "Not resolved, Lynn," she announced, her voice clear and strong, resonating with a newfound freedom. "Remade." A collective gasp rippled through the small group. Their eyes widened, mouths falling open in astonishment as they recognized the official document. A university acceptance. To the capital. In an era where such opportunities were rare, especially for returning youth, and almost unheard of for a woman expected to marry into such a prominent family. You got in?" Another young woman, May, stammered, her voice a mix of disbelief and awe, her gaze fixed on the letter as if it were a magical artifact. Anya nodded, her smile widening. "And I'm going. This is my choice. My future." The words were for them, but also for herself, a reaffirmation of her defiance, a public declaration that cemented her resolve. Their shocked, then admiring gazes were a powerful balm after the intensity of her confrontation, a first taste of the validation that would fuel her new path. The oppressive weight that had defined her past began to lift, replaced by a surge of exhilarating, terrifying possibility. The roar of the train was a symphony of departure, each revolution of its wheels a definitive break from the past. Anya leaned her head against the window, watching the familiar landscape blur, a potent mix of anticipation and a faint, persistent ache in her chest. The exhilarating possibility was tempered by the sheer audacity of her choice. She was truly alone now, forging a path that felt both liberating and terrifyingly uncharted. Across the aisle, an elderly woman with kind but weary eyes observed Anya. "Going far, child?" she asked, her voice raspy. Anya turned, a polite smile on her lips. "To the capital for university." The woman's eyebrows lifted, a flicker of surprise, then a knowing nod. "Ah, university. A fine thing for a young man to build a future. For a girl, well, I hope you find a good husband there. Studies can wait, a good match cannot." Her words, delivered with benign intent, landed like tiny, historical shackles. Anya felt the familiar thrum of indignation, a ghost of her past self who might have nodded, accepted. But this Anya simply smiled again, a hint of steel in her eyes. "I'm going to build my own future, ma'am. My studies are the match." The woman chuckled softly, a dismissive sound that conveyed volumes about ingrained societal expectations. Anya merely turned back to the window, the fleeting exchange serving as a sharp reminder of the world she was leaving behind, and the battle she still had to wage. It only solidified her resolve. Hours later, the train pulled into the bustling capital station, a whirlwind of unfamiliar faces and towering buildings. The sheer scale of the city was a jolt, a vibrant counterpoint to the provincial quiet of her hometown. Navigating the crowds, Anya clutched her worn suitcase and the precious acceptance letter, a beacon guiding her through the urban labyrinth. The university campus was a world unto itself, grand. Imposing brick buildings draped in ivy, manicured lawns, and the low hum of intellectual activity. Registration was a straightforward affair, a series of cues and signatures that felt incredibly official, marking her transition from aspiring student to actual scholar. She received her dormitory key, the metal cool and weighty in her palm, a tangible symbol of her newfound independence. Her room on the third floor was small but cozy, furnished with 2 beds, 2 desks, and a single wardrobe. Already one bed was claimed. A moment later, a cheerful voice chimed, "You must be Anya. I'm Li Wei, your roommate." A girl with bright eyes and an infectious laugh bounced in, a stack of books under her arm. Soon, another arrived, the quieter, studious Chen Fong. The 3 young women quickly fell into an easy rhythm, sharing stories, dreams, and a collective excitement for the years ahead. Anya found herself laughing more freely than she had in years, basking in the warmth of unburdened companionship. Here, her past was merely a backstory, not a definition. Here, her ambitions were met with encouragement, not skepticism. The initial weeks were a heady blur of lectures, library visits, and late-night discussions. Anya devoured textbooks, her mind alight with new ideas. Literature classes became her sanctuary, Professor Zhang, a man with a booming voice and a gentle soul, captivated her with his insights into classical poetry and modern prose. It was in his advanced writing seminar that a seed began to sprout. He spoke of narratives as mirrors, reflecting the human condition, and of words as tools to carve out truth from experience. Anya found herself sketching outlines in her notebook, not for essays, but for stories. Stories about a girl in a small town, a girl who felt trapped by expectations, a girl who yearned for something more. The raw pain of her past, the betrayal, the suffocating expectations, they weren't just wounds anymore. They were narrative threads waiting to be woven. The idea grew, taking root deep within her, to transmute her personal history into literature, to give voice to the unspoken struggles of women like her. It was a daunting prospect, but also an exhilarating one. Yet, even amidst this intellectual feast, shadows sometimes crept in. A letter from her parents, filled with veiled disappointment and thinly disguised pleas to return home, would momentarily dim her spirits. Their anxieties about her unmarried status, their fears for her future without Marcus, were a heavy cloak she had to constantly shed. But each time, she would look around her, at the bustling campus, at her friends poring over books, at the endless possibilities stretching before her, and the cloak would fall away. This life, this choice was hers. The conviction hardened, settling into the core of her being. She wasn't just living for herself. She was living out a truth she believed in, a truth that demanded to be heard. The metallic tang of the autumn air, once a symbol of her burgeoning freedom, now carried a faint echo of unease. Anya was in the university library, lost in the sprawling narratives of ancient philosophers, when a nervous tap on her shoulder startled her. It was one of her roommates, a girl named May, her eyes wide. "Anya, there's a man asking for you outside. He says he's your elder brother." His words, saturated with the prevailing societal beliefs, struck Anya like a cold gust of wind. It wasn't just Lin speaking. It was the voice of their village, their relatives, the ingrained traditions of generations. The very air seemed to press down on her, whispering doubts, questioning her audacity. For a fleeting moment, the vivid memories of her past life, the crushing weight of being a substitute, the yearning for a different fate, flickered behind her eyes. Had she been selfish? Was her pursuit of self-worth truly a betrayal of her family's expectations? The internal struggle was intense, a silent battle raging within her soul. "Lin," Anya said, her voice trembling slightly, but gaining strength with each word. "A woman is not merely an accessory to a man, a vessel for a secure home. We are beings capable of thought, of contribution, of carving our own destiny. My mother, my aunts, they lived lives defined by others. I saw their quiet regrets, their unspoken dreams. I will not repeat that. Education is not a waste. It is my weapon, my shield, my path to freedom. It allows me to stand on my own 2 feet, not as an attachment, but as a complete person." Lin stared at her, his expression a mixture of bewilderment and frustration. Freedom? What freedom is there in struggling to make ends meet, in a world that respects a wife and mother more than a literary woman? "You talk like a book, Anya, not like a sensible girl. Marcus needs a wife, a partner to build a home, not a scholar." He paused, then softened his tone, trying a different tack. "Look, Anya, Marcus is hurt. He's proud, but he sent me because he still cares. He just wants you back, safe, where you belong." "Where I belong, Lin," Anya countered, her gaze unwavering, "is here, where my mind can grow, where I can learn, where I can become. Tell Marcus I wish him well. Tell father and mother that I will make them proud, but on my own terms. My life is not a script written by others. It is a canvas I intend to paint myself." The conversation stretched on, a clash of 2 worlds, 2 ideologies. Lin argued about duty, about family honor, about the unshakable order of things. Anya spoke of self-respect, of breaking chains, of the inherent value of an educated mind. Slowly, grudgingly, the rigid lines of Lin's face began to soften, replaced by a deep, troubled sadness. He saw the fire in her eyes, the unyielding resolve that defied his every argument. He knew, with a pang of reluctant resignation, that this was not the sister he could easily command or persuade. Finally, he stood, his shoulders slumping. I don't understand you, Anya, but I see. I see you're determined." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn pouch. "Mother sent this. A little money for your studies. She worries, even if she doesn't approve." His voice cracked slightly. With a final, bewildered shake of his head, he turned and walked away, his sturdy military boots echoing hollowly on the stone path, leaving Anya alone with the weight of her choices and the quiet hum of the university. Anya watched him go, a profound ache settling in her chest. The confrontation had drained her, leaving her feeling exposed and vulnerable. Despite her conviction, the disapproval of her family, especially her parents, gnawed at her. She walked aimlessly, the vibrant campus colors blurring into a dull haze. Was she truly strong enough to walk this path alone? Just then, a voice broke through her reverie. "Anya, are you all right? You look troubled." It was Julian, her classmate from the literature department, a stack of books tucked under his arm. His kind eyes held genuine concern. Anya found herself, to her surprise, recounting the difficult conversation with her brother, the relentless pressure, the gnawing doubts. Julian listened patiently, his thoughtful gaze never leaving her face. When she finished, he nodded slowly. "Your brother speaks from a place of tradition, Anya. It's not malice, but a blindness born of generations. But you see beyond it. You see a new dawn. That's not just brave, it's revolutionary." He paused, then his eyes lit up. "You know, Anya, what you're experiencing, this struggle against the old ways, this fight for your own truth, it's a story waiting to be told. Powerful story. Why don't you write about it? Turn your struggle, your convictions into a novel. Let your voice be heard, not just by your family, but by everyone who needs to hear it." Julian's words were a spark in the darkness. Anya looked at him, then at her trembling hands, then at the bustling students around them. A novel, her story, a way to fight, not with shouts, but with words. The idea, once a faint whisper, now resonated with unexpected force. The ache in her chest didn't vanish, but it was joined by a nascent sense of purpose. Julian's encouragement was the anchor she needed, pulling her back from the brink of despair. Her personal battle, she realized, could become a beacon for others. She wasn't alone. She had a voice and a story that demanded to be written. The conviction, renewed and strengthened, solidified into a fierce determination. Anya plunged into the crucible of creation, each word a defiance against the silence that had once defined her past. The torment of her previous life, the quiet desperation of a forgotten dream, now fueled her pen. Nights blurred into days as she hunched over her desk, the faint glow of her lamp illuminating stacks of paper filled with urgent script. Her novel, tentatively titled Dust and Dreams, began to take shape, a raw, honest narrative set in a fictionalized rural county remarkably similar to her own hometown. It told the story of a young girl, Lynn, whose spirit yearned for knowledge and a life beyond the confines of tradition, whose ambition clashed violently with her family's insistence on marriage and domesticity. Lynn's struggle mirrored Anya's own, a poignant battle against the prevailing sentiment that a woman's worth was solely measured by her ability to secure a husband and maintain a household. Julian, ever the quiet observer and enthusiastic champion, became her first and most trusted reader. He would sit across from her in the bustling university library, a cup of lukewarm tea between them, meticulously poring over her latest chapters. His feedback was a blend of sharp literary insight and profound understanding, always delivered with an encouraging smile. "Anya," he'd remarked one evening, his eyes alight with admiration, "this isn't just a story. It's a mirror held up to an entire generation of women. Your Lynn, she's not just a character. She's a voice for the unspoken." His praise went beyond mere critique. It was an acknowledgement of the courage embedded in her prose, a recognition of the universal truth she was unearthing. Anya noticed the way his gaze lingered a moment too long sometimes, a soft warmth in his eyes that spoke of more than just academic camaraderie. A subtle blush would rise to her cheeks, a new, unfamiliar sensation. When the manuscript was complete, Julian personally accompanied Anya to Professor Chen's office. The venerable literature professor, known for her discerning eye and uncompromising standards, read Dust and Dreams with an intensity that made Anya's heart pound. Days later, Professor Chen called Anya back, her usual stern demeanor softened by an unmistakable glow of pride. "Anya," she declared, placing the manuscript reverently on her desk, "this is exceptional. It captures the very essence of a woman's struggle for self-determination in our rapidly changing society. It's courageous, it's real, and it needs to be read. I'm personally recommending it to literary currents." The news sent a thrill through Anya that surpassed even the joy of receiving her university admission. Literary Currents was one of the most prestigious literary magazines in the country, a beacon for emerging writers and a platform for intellectual discourse. The waiting period felt interminable, but then a letter arrived, bearing the official seal and a congratulatory note. Dust and Dreams had been accepted for publication. When the issue hit the campus newsstands, it was an explosion. Anya's name, modest yet resolute, appeared beneath the story's bold title. Her classmates, her professors, even the campus staff began to talk. Copies of Literary Currents were passed around dorm rooms, dog-eared and annotated. Discussions ignited in the cafeteria, spilled into lecture halls, and echoed through the library corridors. Young women, many of whom faced similar pressures from their own families and society, found themselves reflected in Lynn's struggle. "It's like she wrote my story," one student whispered to her friend, her eyes wide with a mixture of recognition and newfound defiance. "Can we really choose our own path?" Another mused aloud during a study group, sparking an impassioned debate. Anya, walking through the campus, would sometimes catch snippets of these conversations, a quiet satisfaction blossoming in her chest. She wasn't just writing, she was igniting a spark. Julian watched her, a profound sense of pride swelling within him. He saw the way her presence now commanded respect, the way her words resonated. His admiration for her, once purely intellectual, had deepened into something tender and undeniable. He found himself seeking her out, not just for literary discussions, but for the simple comfort of her company. A shared glance, a quiet laugh over a joke only they understood, a hand brushing hers accidentally. Each moment was a testament to a connection growing stronger, evolving beyond friendship. He knew, with a certainty that both thrilled and terrified him, that he was falling in love with Anya, the fiercely independent woman who had dared to write her own destiny. A crisp, official-looking envelope arrived amidst Anya's usual stack of academic journals and fan letters, for her initial short story had indeed found its audience. The handwriting on the address was unfamiliar, yet a faint, lingering ghost of a memory prickled her fingertips. Marcus. Her breath hitched, a fleeting tremor in her otherwise steady composure. Inside, the letter was direct, devoid of the familiar arrogance. Marcus admitted his youthful folly, the rigid adherence to duty and a misguided, almost blind devotion to a past ideal. He spoke of the lessons learned in Anya's absence, of introspection forced upon him by a silence he had once taken for granted. He even, to her surprise, offered a sincere congratulation on her published work, a small paragraph acknowledging her talent and the courage it took to pursue her dreams. It wasn't an apology in the traditional sense, but an acknowledgement of his errors and a blessing for her future path. Anya read it twice, then carefully folded the letter, tucking it away not out of sentimentality, but as a final, tangible proof of her journey. It wasn't the vindication she craved, but a quiet, internal validation. He had seen, he had understood, however belatedly, the last lingering tendril of resentment, an almost imperceptible thread, snapped and dissolved. She felt lighter, untethered from a past that had once threatened to define her. 2 years bloomed and faded, each season marking Anya's deeper immersion into her studies and the burgeoning world of literature. Her short story had paved the way, securing her a small, coveted scholarship for her final year, a testament to her unwavering dedication. She spent her days in the library, the scent of old paper and ink a comforting balm, and her nights at her desk, the glow of a solitary lamp illuminating the pages of her nascent long novel, provisionally titled Rebirth. It was a story not of literal reincarnation, but of spiritual awakening, of shedding old skins and reclaiming one's true self. Julian, now her steadfast intellectual companion and quiet confidant, often brought her late-night tea, his presence a warm, unpressured solace. It was on a bustling autumn afternoon, amidst the familiar red brick buildings of the university, that their paths unexpectedly converged. Anya, head filled with complex narrative structures, was making her way to a seminar when a tall, familiar figure stepped out from the shade of an ancient ginkgo tree. Marcus. He was clad in civilian clothes, a dark, well-tailored suit that softened his military bearing, yet the innate authority remained. His face had matured, the sharp angles more defined, a hint of something akin to peace in his usually guarded eyes. "Anya," he greeted, his voice deeper, less commanding than she remembered. "Marcus," she replied, her own voice steady, devoid of any old hurt or surprise. They exchanged polite pleasantries, a surreal dance of two people who had once been destined, by others, to share a life. He spoke of his new posting in the capital, an administrative role that still commanded respect. Then, almost as an afterthought, he mentioned Celeste. "Celeste returned last year," he said, a quiet fondness entering his tone. "We're getting married next spring." Anya felt a genuine, uncomplicated wave of warmth wash over her. No pang of regret, no sting of jealousy, only a clear, resonant sense of rightness. "That's wonderful news, Marcus," she said, offering a sincere smile. "I truly wish you both all the happiness in the world. I believe this is exactly how it was meant to be. Our choices, however painful they once seemed, led us precisely where we needed to go." Soon after, Rebirth hit the bookshelves, a raw, honest chronicle of a young woman's defiance against societal expectations. It wasn't just a book, it was a revelation. The literary world buzzed, but more importantly, it sparked fervent discussions among women across the nation, challenging entrenched notions of duty, sacrifice, and self-worth. Anya, now a celebrated author, saw her words become a beacon for others, illuminating paths they hadn't dared to imagine. Her parents, initially hesitant, traveled to the capital. Seeing the thriving, confident woman their daughter had become, the love in her marriage, and the tangible impact of her work, their apprehension melted into profound pride. The old anxieties faded, replaced by a quiet, dawning understanding that Anya's chosen path was not just valid, but glorious. Years later, a new chapter unfolded with the arrival of their daughter, May. Holding her tiny hand, Anya felt a fierce, protective love mingled with a resolute determination. May would know no limits, no preconceived roles. She would be raised with the freedom to dream, to question, and to carve her own destiny, nurtured by the lessons her mother had so painstakingly learned. 10 years spun like a well-worn yarn, each thread woven with purpose and self-discovery, transforming Anya into a luminary in the literary world. Her novels, once quiet whispers of defiance, now roared across continents, translated into a dozen languages, each word a beacon for countless women navigating their own silent battles. She was no longer just a writer. She was an architect of dreams, a fearless voice for the voiceless. She crisscrossed the nation, from bustling city auditoriums to quiet university halls, her speeches a powerful symphony of resilience and empowerment. Her words, laced with personal experience, resonated deeply. "Your worth is not measured by the role society assigns you, but by the courage to define your own." After one such talk at a provincial university, a young woman approached her, eyes shining with a familiar mix of hope and trepidation. "Ms. Anya," she began, clutching a tattered book. "My family says I should just marry and settle down, My fiancé. He wants me to give up my scholarship. He says my place is with him. Anya looked at the young woman, seeing a ghost of her younger self reflected in those earnest eyes. Your path is your own, Anya advised gently, her voice firm yet compassionate. Love that demands your sacrifice, that asks you to diminish your light, is not love. It is a cage. Choose freedom. Choose yourself. The right person will walk beside you, not in front, and certainly not behind, dragging you back. The student nodded, a newfound resolve hardening her gaze, and Anya felt a quiet pride in the ripple effect of her journey. One crisp autumn afternoon, strolling through a sun-dappled park near her home, Anya found herself face to face with Celeste. Years had softened the edges of memory, blurring the lines of past rivalries. Celeste, looking serene and elegant, offered a genuine smile. Anya, she said, her voice warm. I've often wanted to thank you. Anya raised an eyebrow, surprised. For what? Celeste chuckled softly. For saying no to Marcus. For being so stubbornly, beautifully you. If you hadn't refused him, if you hadn't forced him to confront his own heart, he might never have truly seen me. He might have settled for a shadow, and I would have, too. Your courage, in a strange way, paved the path for our happiness. Anya felt a profound sense of peace settle over her. The past was not a wound, but a landscape she had navigated, leading all of them to their truest destinations. Celeste mentioned Marcus had recently been posted overseas, a prestigious assignment, and they were thriving. Their happiness, she realized, was as authentic as her own. Life with Julian was a quiet masterpiece, a canvas painted with shared laughter, intellectual debates, and unwavering mutual respect. Their daughter, little Mira, was a vibrant, inquisitive soul, her mother's independent spirit already twinkling in her bright eyes. Mira, too, showed a nascent talent for words, often found scribbling stories in her journal. Anya, ever mindful of her own journey, never pushed, only encouraged, allowing Mira the boundless freedom to explore her own passions, to discover her own voice, whatever it might be. Anya often sat by her window, a cup of tea warming her hands, watching the world unfold. She thought of Marcus, of Celeste, of her parents, who now visited often, their faces etched with pride, their once traditional views softened by time and Anya's undeniable success. Every choice, every refusal, every daring step she had taken had been the right one. Her life was a testament to the power of a woman's will, a symphony of her reborn path to freedom. The future, she knew, held its own mysteries, its own challenges, but she faced it with the quiet confidence of one who had learned to trust her own heart, her own mind, and her own enduring strength. The echoes of betrayal had faded, replaced by the roar of resilience, a sound that would inspire for generations to come.